Right. Just give that a minute.
Yeah.
Here we are today. Today's podcast guest, Shane Carthy. Say hello, Shane.
Hi guys, thanks very much.
No
Appreciate
worries. Shane's going to work a seatbelt on him because we don't want any bleeding, any headbangers given out. We're going to drive down the road here. So, with an added feature that I just don't. Normally, I just park up in the van and talk. But today, I'm doing a bit of driving, so I don't know. Hope I don't bleed and crash into
It's like those carpool karaoke.
Something like that, yeah. Something like that. So myself and Shane went for a swim there earlier on with his mum, and I suppose he talked about something that I'm really interested in at the moment. Ian Gary, local Portmarnock fella.
Yeah.
He had a good scrap the other night. Did you see it?
Yeah, just seen the highlights. Yeah,
man, he just seemed to be, in fairness to Ian, your man seemed to be just out of his depth. It was just, there's levels to that game. And Ian was just playing levels above him, you know what I mean? He wasn't even out first gear. That's what I thought looking at it, you know.
Yeah.
But he's the promotion that Ian is with at the moment, Cage Warriors, I really like that promotion. I think there is other good ones as well, but my preferred one.
Yeah.
All the lads kind of came through. Connor obviously being one of the biggest.
Of course, yeah.
But,
it's a nice stepping stone for him, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a nice little feeder, Cage Warriors for Ian now. Technically, two more decent performances, and the UFC have to be banging his door down, you know.
Yeah.
That's
why I think a lot of people see it. That's why he's so seen it, and it's great. Like, as I'm speaking to him, like.
Yeah, no, it's good, and it's good for a community like Portmarnock to have him and have yourself. It's always good for good role models for the youngsters coming along. You know what I mean? That they've someone to aspire to and aim to. You know. Just gonna pull in down here. We'll pull in somewhere handy enough. But, it was a great performance. It's good. I'm really interested in MMA, and I watch all the fights, you know, break them down. As just telling you before, my son is kind of into it. We break down all the fights and stuff like that, you know. So we would take them apart, you know. And you're a mad coffee drinker.
A mad coffee enthusiast, yeah.
It's good stuff.
No, it's
good
nice,
stuff.
Nice little Americano.
And you're blessed to here in Portmarnock because I like honey. I like that. I like Gorilla in Malahide as well.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Gorilla's probably my favourite.
Would you believe it or not, I only tried it the first time in, was it 2 weeks ago or something like that?
Yeah.
A lot of people are saying, try it, and I just never got around to it. In 2 weeks ago, I was like, fuck, I'll try it.
Savage coffee.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah,
very nice, I have to say, yeah.
I have a full on rocket espresso machine at home.
Have you?
Full on grinder. The Howler.
The whole.
The Howler. I got it. There's a place called Zero out in, I think they're out in Mead. My wife got it. I think the machine all in was, I think it was about £2,000.
Yeah.
But it's the grinder then is about another €200. But that's what I do. I drink coffee. I like coffee. Fuck it. I'm buying it. You know.
Make an investment.
Yeah. But I still like hitting coffee shops as well. You know what I mean? But I like the ones around there, Gorilla and Honey. I like them.
Yeah.
You know, they're my two favourites.
Honey actually had the book. I don't know if they still have it. They were selling the book as well.
Oh, deadly.
Yeah.
Deadly.
It was great.
So here we go. So we're going to start talking about this today. Shane's book. I read it in about 3 days, cover to cover. Couldn't put it down.
Brilliant.
And my wife gets freaked. I get into a book. I read a lot. I never read when I was younger. Now I read a lot. I always have about 4 books on the go.
Yeah.
I just read a lot about everything, all sorts like. But I couldn't put that book down. I suppose we'll go back to the very start. How you start playing Gaelic football. Your sporty anyway. I know the story from the book, but a lot of people won't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sports. You start playing for Nave Marnoak. What age?
4 or 5. So it would have been the nurseries. Would have been the nursery kind of. And going into it, of course, you're 4 or 5 years of age. You're just going in, having a bit of crack, having a bit of fun, seeing kind of what you like, what you don't like, and straight away, I vividly remember at 4 or 5 years of age, as in like how much I love Gaelic football.
Yeah.
I was thrown into absolutely everything, as in like from even speaking to my mum earlier on, I probably kind of got that impression that we're just sport mad, like you know, we're big enthusiasts. So I was following the footsteps of kind of my 3 sisters, particularly my dad as well. Glad I didn't meet him. He's a bit of a hatter.
Sure. You know myself.
But yeah, no, he was one that was throwing me into everything in particular, and following the footsteps. And Gaelic football was obviously the big thing.
Yeah,
the big thing for me from an early age, like, you know.
Yeah, and then you play a bit of golf, and you do a bit of everything as well, and then you kind of, in your teenage years, you came on the radar for Dublin.
Yeah.
What age?
It was, so my Dublin career like would have started in small capacity under 12s. So
Okay.
it's like the Dublin development teams, where it's north, south, west, and different bits and pieces. You play a couple of kind of tournaments, Easter tournaments, summer tournaments. Where it really kind of came into the fore was kind of my minor years, so like 16, 17, so 4th, 5th year type thing. That's where you could really say your career really does begin. Training 5-6 times a week. As you say, I was playing golf, I was playing soccer, I was playing everything, but then I think I whittled it down just to Gaelic and soccer.
Yeah.
Playing soccer at a high level. Aspirations of playing for Manchester United one day.
Yeah.
Probably not many kids that have aspirations where they are now, but you know, I had big aspirations of that. But I think my decision was made in the middle of 4th year. I've met Desi Farrell, obviously, where he's of course huge in my story.
Yeah.
Of course didn't know at the time what was going to go on, but he gave me my first crack at, you could say, like a proper Dublin career.
Yes.
You know, at 16, 17, so it was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm going to go after here, like.
Yeah. And I then, the bit I get out of your book, and when we read a book, and I love the way you spoke about sometimes, about after kind of reintegrating, I'm going to jump forward, reintegrating back into society, kind of, and going to a party and getting overwhelmed and stuff, and about what I took from the book is, we all read a book and we identify with certain bits in it and reflect it back into our own lives. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We do that. It's kind of the self-centered nature of the way we are. You know, we reflect it back in. And the bit you spoke about, Desi Farrell there, but what I was thinking about the book is the family unit as well. Like, I met your mum there this morning, and your sisters, when I read the book, your sisters, how core your family unit were to your support. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm jumping a bit forward here. But that's what I took out of it. And then I took it back into myself. Kind of, we all, like, you read a book and you're like, yeah, I done that and I done that. And you take the bits you want, you know what I mean? And leave the rest.
Yeah.
But Desi Farrell coming into it as well, early on in your career, under 21s, and with your schooling, when did you kind of feel the pressures? Not the pressures, I don't like to say that, but when did you feel different about it? Like, did you always feel like that when you were a teenager? Kind of the anxiety part I'm talking about. Yeah,
I think, like, in terms of pressure wise, if you're talking about purely from football, like, as in, I nearly went to seek that out. Yes. As in, like, I love that kind of, as in, like, people are like, geez, 82,500 people in Crow Park, as in, like, I wouldn't be able to do it. I was like, this is what I've been dreaming of. You know, that kind of way. So as in, like, I was nearly seeking that. But then where it kind of came into, you know, a bit of difficulty was the middle of 5th year. Where it had started, what I didn't know then, what I now know was the start of the depression. So that was the cross between the pressure that I was seeking in terms of football in sense, but then what was going on for me off the field was completely different. I was thinking, like, I remember at the start, like, as in, I was thinking this is hormonal changes going on or something like that, you know, that kind of way. And that was the difficulty that I had, because I built up, even from that early age, I built up such a persona of this invincible kind of figure, particularly around this area of Portmarnock, as in that's what people see me as. He's going to be the next big Dublin footballer, whatever you want to call it. I didn't want to be up on that pedestal. I didn't feel the pressure to be up there, because I just accept, okay, this is where people are seeing me, and that kind of nearly motivated me to make sure that, you know, I am that person that people are seeing me as.
Yeah.
But then the difficulty, the other life that I was living, the internal life, was that anxiety, that kind of depression piece, that thing that I couldn't quite make sense of. Mental health wasn't spoken about, like, as in like here today we're talking about, you know, mental health, depression. That wouldn't happen back in 2012 when it all started.
No,
you know, that kind of way.
Yeah.
So that was definitely the middle of fifth year was the start of what was inevitably 2-year span of ever worse than depression.
And I told you already about my dad was in Pats twice, kind of back to back, more or less. You know what I mean?
At the same time or something.
In and around the same time, but I wouldn't have had I kind of got educated, as I'm sure your family got educated, because when somebody you love is going through this, it's kind of like, what? You have to educate yourself and kind of, so like what you're talking about, mental health, wouldn't be spoken about. I fucking hadn't mental health, what? I hadn't a bleeding clue, like, you know. And another friend of mine that was on my team that I competed with died of bulimia years ago, you know, and I wouldn't have the words for that either, you know. What do I ask him? You know, he says he's losing loads of weight and he's in the height.
What am I saying here?
But now we've the words for it. Now we know what to. We're more educated, I think, as a population now.
Yeah.
We're more tuned in, as we should be.
Yeah, and I love that kind of piece in terms of, as in, that was one thing that you could relate to, and I completely relate to that education piece, because that was a big thing for me in St. Pat's, where my mum and dad and my 3 sisters and my 2 best mates who came in to support me, I'd said to them, was like, look, as much as I'm educating and learning about myself, I'm going to take you along this journey, because they were in the exact same piece of, what do we say, we don't want to offend you, are we saying the right things? So I'd let them kind of, you know, go about this journey with me and say, look, this works for me, this doesn't. And that still continues on. Like, as in 7 years on, I'll never shy away from the fact I'll still have my good and bad days. You know, in recent times I've even had some kind of personal kind of difficulties over the last number of months. You know, but I still have that family unit. You know, I have the mum, the dad, 3 sisters. That'll never change. Where once, not that it wasn't there, I just didn't seek it. Do you know, that kind of way? So we're all educated. They know, they can sense if I'm having a bad day or I'm a bit indifferent or bits and pieces. But the beauty of it is now we can speak about it. There's that kind of conversation, as you say, we've come such a long way. Of, like, you know, going down the village, you know, chatting away to people are like, oh, do you have any advice? I'm feeling a bit down. That wouldn't happen 7 years ago.
No.
Do you know, that kind of way?
No.
Which is great. Like, and we're seeing it, even, like, to kind of go on from that, we're seeing it in schools, and we go into clubs, schools, corporates, all over the country. And like these wellbeing workshops, bits and pieces, and in a strange way I get such a buzz when I see people, in one way it's difficult seeing them going through a difficult time, but the same token they're willing to speak up, and I'm like, you're starting that journey that I started 7 years ago, and you're going to feel so much better, although it's going to be difficult, absolutely 100%, but you're starting that journey, you've taken that first step, you know.
And then even when you help people, or it's like, if we're all talking about our problems here and I'm saying, oh Jesus, Shane, look what's wrong with me and me in the height of it, and you're saying your stuff, and then when we move away, you're walking away kind of going, thank Jesus, things aren't too bad here. These bollocks. You know, so it's about being like, we're never, and people that don't suffer with mental health, like, we're all trying to just get along, and some people are up and some people are down, but we're more, the language is out there now. Do you know what I mean? And that's the really important bit. Like, I speak a lot on my social media about mental health, and like, I've never suffered with mental health, but my dad has, and like you taking 45s, or if you take 45s, or you're looking at a technique in GAA, the reason why I look at these techniques is, well, if this is what my dad went through, what makes me so different? So I'm really aware, you know what I mean? And the bit in your book that I really identified with, I have a teenager, you know what I mean? I have, and he's a high level sports athlete, and I'm really, what that book tuned me into is being really, because he hasn't got the words to say, you know, he's a teenager. Like you were a teenager. He's just, how's training? There's just bags getting launched in, a grunt up the stairs. You know what I mean? I was just like, was it good? Was it bad? You know, and I'm watching stuff, or my wife is watching stuff. So the book really focused me in on kind of, and I do have a great relationship with him. We do talk and stuff like that, but that's what the book tuned me into, you know, because my mum read it and she's like, you have to read this book. I was like, all right. And that's, I was telling you about my mum earlier on, that's where I got the book from, and I couldn't put it down. But it's great that, like, I remember the first time my dad got hospitalised when he was in his 30s. I never knew anything about it. And it was always kind of, with not that it was a family secret, but it just wasn't spoken about. And it was always kind of, you know, and you'd hear and you'd be like, what? And then it kind of, but the height of his first hospitalisation when he was 30s, he told me all about it. It was literally sat in a bed, filled full of drugs for 2 weeks, and that was it. And off you go. You know what I mean? And he lost himself in sport, like what you spoke about in your book, going up to Portmarnock, banging the balls, chasing that feeling. He lost himself in his sport for so many years, and he represented Ireland and he done all that, but that was waiting for him. You know what I mean? It was never addressed. You know what I mean? And you can lose yourself in sport and chasing the good feeling, but like what you had to do on Pats and with your counsellor after that, it's, you have to find out what makes you tick. Like.
And even kind of that kind of point of, like, although sport was and is a massive thing in my life, of course, what I'd kind of learned, and even particularly learned over, you could say, these kind of COVID times, that, you know, you have certain pillars in your life. So sport and pillar is obviously a huge one in my life, but then I have family, I have relationships, career, you know, social, all these kind of different pillars. If one thing gets taken away, there's still so many legs keep me kind of standing up, do you know, that kind of way. Whereas I'm like, and particularly it's funny when you talk about your son, as in, like, he's probably so tunnel visioned in thinking MMA or sport or any bit of physical exercise he's doing, that's me, that's all that's going on. And I remember when I was 16, 17, in around that age, nothing else apart from football means anything to me in my life. If you're not going to talk about sport, I don't want to know you. And I remember my mum and dad saying, you know, you need to broaden your horizons. I was like, what are you on about? You know, what are you on about? What are you saying that to me for? And it was only when I got to the depths of despair that I realised exactly what they meant. You know, you need to broaden your horizons, and having little different conversations, opening up to different bits and pieces in your life, and having these different pillars. If one gets taken away, you can rely upon in so much other things, like, you know. And that's unfortunately the case for a lot of people, where they put their eggs into one basket. Doesn't work out. And as I said, in the case of, say, with your dad, you know, sport was his go-to, and when that wasn't there, you know, the demons became even kind of louder and darker and all that kind of sort of stuff. So broaden your horizons, have your pillars there, and absolutely go after things that, you know, makes you tick, because that's obviously where people will find their happiness, but have a lot of them. And
what, like, with my dad, I used to go into Pats a lot to him, you know. I'd go in and visit him, and I was always like, the little, like, every ward you spoke about, I was in. Dean Swift, I was in the mall, and I used to go in and talk with him, and I the first time, you know, you kind of summed up the way I was feeling. What the fuck am I going in here? Is there going to be cunts fucking, and it's, you know, chained up or straight jackets, or I didn't know what I was going into. And then you go in, it's real light, bright and airy and nice, and he kind of was off one of the little rooms with a couple of other men in the room. But what I was surprised is, then when he settled in there for a while, he was in another place, and they were all young fellas. I couldn't get over it. Like, I was like, these are all like 18 to 23. I was like expecting to see all these wrote off dudes, but they were all young fellas. And it kind of, that opened my eyes, you know, his 2 stints in there. That opened my eyes too, and educated me into this whole mental health thing, you know, and you spoke about there the legs on the chairs. Then when you got moved to another ward, a couple of these fellas were dentists, a couple of them were doctors. You know, you have all these prejudgments what type of people are going to be in there, and then you go in there and it's just like shattered what you thought. Yeah. You know, and what I gleaned out of anyway, here were all these really captains of industry, because a lot of them, you'd get talking to them, you know, doctors and stuff, and they lost themselves in their careers, and then when their careers were over, they were left with their thoughts. Yeah. There was nothing, no treadmill for them anymore. Yeah. You know.
Yes. Yeah. And even when he touched upon the point there of like exactly that, when I first came to the realisation that, geez, this affects everyone. As in, like, when I was looking around the hospital, exactly that. I was looking at an 18-year-old over there. I was looking at an 80-year-old over there. Male, female, no matter what it may be. And I was thinking exactly that when I came in. What am I going to come across? I'm going to come across people headbutting walls and like all these kind of perceptions that are out there. And then I kind of came to realisation that all these quote-unquote normal people and this guy up on this pedestal, I need to step up on this pedestal in a different way and let people know this guy, Dublin superstar, whatever quote-unquote they were calling me, can go through difficult times, and so can you. Because people are like, I remember even like my first times in like group therapy, I was still introducing Shane to Dublin footballer. And I was kind of like, I'm a person at the end of the day. Like, and I knew, I took it with a pinch of salt. I knew, you know, they only meant it in a nice way, but I was like, I'm a person too, as in, like, you know, and same with yourselves, like, you know, and so many different people, you have so many different conversations that you learn so many different things, and that's what I took upon when I have a conversation with someone. Even if it's one thing that you take away from that, just try to get a little nugget of information off the 70-year-old over there, the 18-year-old over there, little bits of information to help me and my kind of overall kind of, I would say, capacity to be able to kind of cope and learn and kind of go through life in a much, much better way than I simply wasn't before. I think that was Ian, or no, I thought that was Ian Gary going by there. Come on, Ian.
Get you on the podcast in a few weeks, hours. Now it's you can learn. I remember I heard Conor McGregor talking about that. You can learn something for everyone. He was in Venice Beach, and there was this homeless fella doing muscle ups, and this homeless fella showed him a detail on how to just do the final bit of the muscle up. So we can learn. I'm out, like, my mind's like a parachute. I can learn from anyone. Do you know what I mean? And if your mind is closed like that, you'll struggle. You have to be. And I like what you're talking about in there. Like, it opened my eyes. Me, and the same with your whole family. Boy, the ripple effect of you having to go through, they are all the better for it. You know, and my dad, I talked to him about it a lot, and he wouldn't change a thing. No, he wouldn't. Like, he grew so much as a person by what he had to go through. Like, and I wouldn't change a thing either. I never looked back at that and say, Jesus, that was a terrible time and blah, blah, blah. Like, we are blessed that it happened. That's the way I feel, you know what I mean? Because I wouldn't have read all this stuff and educated myself on this stuff and got more of an understanding of life if he hadn't gone through that.
You know? I completely relate to that. As in, like, I remember my brother-in-law, my sister, my old sister Michelle lives over in Stockholm, so we'd see her, you know, once, twice a year, and same with my brother-in-law as well. And the last time I'd seen him was at the depths of despair, at the worst time of my life, and I'd left him, and of course a couple of days later I found myself in St. Pat's. Next time my sister had seen me was halfway through St. Pat's. Next time my brother-in-law had seen me was that Christmas. So he had known or had seen a person prior to St. Pat's, and then he'd seen, I remember him, I think I said it in the book as well, he goes, what did you do to Shane? I remember at the Christmas time I was speaking more openly, more perspective on life, all this kind of stuff, and he was like, what did you do to Shane, kind of thing, you know, and they laugh and joke about it, but the same thing with my family, we wouldn't change anything for the world. And if you were to look back, if you were to talk about regrets in a story, I wouldn't have any, apart from maybe one that I didn't speak up on day one. And whatever I've went through, I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. If I had known the path that was there for me thereafter, although difficult, I would have taken it on day one in the middle of fifth year. And not let it kind of manifest, because it was just that fear of the unknown. It's the fear of judgment that, as we spoke about, the kind of mental health wasn't spoken about.
No.
So I had no kind of path, I had no book to read or anything like that, any path to kind of follow in that regard, thinking, okay, this is the steps that I need to take. I didn't know. I was thinking, I'm the only one going through this. You know?
Now, there's another book I read as well. Two books I read. The Chimp Paradox. Have you ever read that book?
Professor Steve Peters. Great book. Yeah.
And Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. Have you read that one?
Never read it, no.
It's really good.
Okay.
About what we're talking about, similar. He introduced this logotherapy. So it's like about searching for this meaning. And it helps people. Like, there were certain people in the concentration camp that he was in, and they just couldn't take anymore, and they throw themselves on the electric fence, you know what I mean? Then there was other people in there that had a purpose, you know, a little purpose that kept them going, you know, whether it's a sunset or looking at a tree. But I won't ruin it on you, but it's good. But with your family, when your brother-in-law said to you, that bit in the book, my favourite bit in the book, because I've experienced this on my little journey with regards to me dad and being more aware, is when you went for a walk around Hout with your sister the first time, and you just couldn't see it, and you're in the fucking height of it, and then the second time, I've heard what you went through. I've heard this described in books that I've read as a spiritual awakening. Coming to consciousness. It's like, I was looking at that fucking tree a month ago. It's only a fucking tree. And then after this, you're looking at it going, Jesus, I never realised how nice that was. It's like a new pair of glasses. You know, I really enjoyed that bit.
I think actually I might be absolutely, I'm not too sure, don't quote me on this one, but I think it's Mark Twain. I think I read like a quote, or like, I love those kind of quotes, or even like a little kind of story of two men in a prison cell looking out. One sees the ground, the other sees the stars. And it's like that too, exactly that kind of perspective on life, where I just seen the gravel in front of me on my feet, you know, trotting along, and that's all I'd seen the first time. And then the second time, post St. Pat's, new perspective on life, new kind of way of thinking. I was seeing everything that Hout had to offer. And I was just like, I'm so happy to be here. Like, as in, I never ever thought that, you know, my face would leave the ground. Do you know that kind of way? And I was just thinking, this is just so much, like, as in the life on the other side, so much greener, as in, and I can see everything. And even just having her there by my side was just kind of that extra kind of bit of like, I'm so glad that I didn't take the step that unfortunately my thoughts were bringing me to, in the shape of the suicidal ideations. And so grateful that I never took that step, because you talk about that kind of search for meaning. I think even when I was at the depths of despair, there was something deep down that was keeping me afloat, as in, like, I want a part of this life. I want to be amongst my family. I can see everything that they want for me, so deeply, in terms of to find my happiness again. And when I was at the depths of despair, I think those were kind of moments where I kind of thought about them and different bits and pieces, how much I have going for me in my life. You know, and just hang on. It's going to get better. It's going to get better. I know it's completely, you know, it's hugely difficult when you're at that point. You can't see the wood from the trees, but thereafter I'm kind of like so grateful, and I love that kind of contrast. I love that you picked up on that. And like, even and then, like, family are family, you know, and like, it's great out the other side, but even thinking back, I remember, like, getting, like, as I'm sure you didn't talk about it in the book, but your family, like, the frustration as well. It's like, I remember with me dad, I used to kind of like, and it's like, how fucking dare me, you know what I mean? But you're just fucking, like, I'm fucking trying to balance my own family, I'm trying to help me ma, me dad's fucking in the height of it, and I remember just getting so frustrated every now and again, and I feel real guilty over that now, because he was going through fucking hell, you know, and not that I was adding to it, but just like, for fuck's sake, you know. And his medication, it wasn't working, and he was all over the place on his medication. But being out the other side of it, what you spoke about there, that spiritual awakening, I've heard it referred to, it's via that CBT,
the cognitive behavioural therapy.
Yeah.
It's seeing the solution rather than just the problem.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and finding ways out of it. That's what really helped him, you know.
Yeah, and that was a big thing for me as well. Even when I spoke about, you know, in recent kind of times of having my own kind of personal ongoings and different bits and pieces, the kind of armour that I've built up, or the kind of things that I rely upon, is like I've been through the worst time of my life, and I've came out the other side. Mm-hmm. So whatever it is, adversity in terms of, you know, relationships, friendships, sport, and anything like that, I can get through it.
Yeah.
Do you know that kind of way? So as in, like, although how difficult it may be at the time, I still have that kind of like that bit in me that I know the path, I know the process here, and that kind of thinking of things will get better. So that perspective of that kind of CBT, not looking, okay, this is what the reality is, and that's all it's going to be. Yeah. It's about kind of seeing, just having like little glimpses of the other side, the brighter side too, and flipping it around. And it's great that I can think like that. And that's what I try to say to people, as in, like, even if you're not going through a difficult time, exactly what you're saying there, you've been lucky enough in your life not to have this personally, but you've still educated yourself, you know. And that's the beauty of it, is when I say to people, as in, like, you just never know. You never know what way life is going to pan out for you. Yeah. But if you're armoured in this kind of regard in terms of educating yourself around mental health and bits and pieces, you know, tools, resources, when you do come to that shit, you know, you can find your way out of it, because you know straight away. Don't let it get to that crisis point and go, I need to do something here. Do you know? That's what I try to say to people.
Now, and a lot of people get through like crazy stuff. Like, they have, like, I've known people, friends of mine, that have had partners that murdered or killed themselves, or crazy stuff, and they get over absolutely huge stuff, and then it's like the little pebble in the shoe that just fucking sends them over the edge. It's never the big fucking huge stuff, it's the fucking small little stuff. Like, my dad, what sent me dad over the edge was, like, he was getting over like kind of big stuff, and his mum died, and that was just fucking that was it. You know what I mean? Boom, after that, like 2-3 months after it. So it's with the CBT, what I think it should be fucking compulsory in schools.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
stuff is so, like, for business or for sport, it's about, everyone talks about mindset. It's problem solving. It's like, there is better times. We're going through fucking hell here at the moment, but up there, that's where we're aiming for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It should be compulsory in schools. It's so good, like, you know.
And that's where I try to come across as well. I'm going into schools now, and not to mean in some sort of systems that they have in fourth year in terms of the geography trips and trips away and all this. I'm like, why don't you educate, especially, you know, and I'm not saying you can't go through difficult times prior to fourth year, but you're coming to a point in your life in fifth and sixth year where there's a lot of pressure on yourself in terms of, as in, like, teachers saying you need to get a good leaving cert, you need to go to college, you need to get a job, all this kind of step up in the ladder and all that. And that can be very, very consuming. And it was for me. I'm not saying it was the causation of my demise, but it is an added kind of pressure, because there's a lot of things. Okay, what am I doing with my life again? Like, I'm 26 years of age. I still don't know what I'm doing with my life, but I'm completely fine with that. You know, 18 years of age, I would have been in the gutter, don't know what I'm doing, I haven't figured my life out. As in, like, it doesn't matter. We all go through our own path, and if we had these kind of education kind of workshops, particularly in fourth year, in the school curriculum in general, as in, like, we'd be so much better, because even the kind of statistics that are unfortunately out there, if I'm right in saying, in a couple of years we're heading to the point of having the highest suicide rate in Europe. Do you know? And to not have an education kind of piece around for younger generations to spark that change that we need to in that statistical world, you know, it's just mind blowing, as in, like, how the government has just given it a lot of lip service, I think, in my regard. You know, we need to do more for mental health and etc, but there's nothing being done. No. You know? No. And like, up until I was 26, I was a fucking idiot. I didn't know what the fuck I wanted to do. Like, I remember, like, being certain, doing a shitty leaving cert and just going, I'm not fucking spending another 3 years in fucking college. I'm floating around for a while. And the thing is, nobody fucking knows what they really want to do. You know, loads of my friends went to UCD and Trinity and stuff,
They dropped out after a year because their mas wanted them to do this thing.
Yeah.
It's like this arms race in Ireland. College is grand. Some people are into it, but it's this arms race. But you're not supposed to know at 18 what you want to do, or 19 or 20. Make a few mistakes and feel it out, you know. And like with my son at the moment, he's doing his leaving cert next year, and there's no pressure.
Yeah.
We've no pressure. It's like, I'd say to him at the moment, because he's 18, and girls are different at 18. Girls are more clued in.
Yeah.
Your three sisters would have been on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
They're so much more mature. Whereas lads like myself, we're just fucking knuckleheads until, you know. Whereas I say to me, it's like a mature student, 23. You know, you don't have to. You can do this and do what makes you happy. And if you want to go on 23, mature students, so there's tons of avenues.
Yeah.
There's no need to be that much kind of, it's the leaving cert or zero. We've kind of gone like America, I think, with college is great. It's great if people are into it, but it's like this fucking arms race, and the kids are getting so freaked out and panicked. Like, you know, there's no need for it, really.
It's that kind of status quo where, like, as in just going with the societal norms of, like, as in, you do your leaving cert, you go to college, you get a job, you pay your taxes, you get a mortgage, and you die. You know, as in, like, to have it like that. And I love different stories, kind of quirky stories, and of course some things like that, you know, go to college, get a job, absolutely, there is a place for that as well. But there's so many different avenues for different people, because we're all different. We're all different, and I've heard so many different stories of a couple of my mates never went to college. They're very successful in whatever line of work that they're in. Some are travelling the world, some are still doing their studies, you know, but they're all doing it in their own way. They're all happy in their own way of finding out. And I think they only kind of came to that realisation as they kind of, you know, went along their kind of 20s and all that teenage years. They were thinking, oh, I should be going to college, you know, and the likes of that. Many of them had dropped out after first, second and third year because their parents wanted them to go along that kind of line of the status quo. And when they kind of got their own headspace and that maturity thing you're talking about, it's like, I don't want this, this isn't for me, like, I need to go along my own path. And just as long as you're kind of learning and maturing and taking little bits of information off everyone as you're going along life, you know, you could get to 40 years of age and still not know what you want to do, but you could be very, very happy in all your experiences that you went through. You know? No, 100%. There's no need for that pressure. You have to produce money all right and knock out stuff, but kind of, if you're producing a bit of money and you're doing stuff that's making you happy, like what we did, the sea swimming this morning, like playing football, going to the gym, having healthy relationships, it all feeds in, like, you know what I mean? It's all super important. And like, my view, I'm very anti-government, I'm anti-Fianna Fáil, I'm anti the whole lot of them. Fucking hate politicians, every single one of them, every party. But if we are waiting for the government or these guys to do something, they don't give a fuck. They're not coming to help us out. Like, if you help yourself, you'll be all right. Do you know what I mean? It's like, these people aren't coming. It's not important to them. It only gets important to them when it arrives on their lap. You know what I mean? Then they start doing stuff about it. So it's about arming yourself, reading this book, tons of other books, and getting out there, doing what you're doing, trying to get involved in the community, helping people. For me, to keep on to whatever I have, or it's if you give it away, you feel better about it. And so those small things as well, like, you wouldn't believe, like, particularly around these kind of times, as you say, that kind of community kind of based spirit. I certainly feel it in Portmarnock anyway, you know, going down to get your coffee down in Honey, or bits and pieces like that, going down for the sea swim. Little things of, like, even just saying hello to someone, or like a little pat in the back, or like a you know, little text message here and there. When I was going through the most difficult times, it was the smallest of gestures that meant the most to me. You know, so I think in around these kind of times to kind of absolutely remember that. As in, like, those little kind of gestures can mean so much to people, and you just don't know on the other side what they're going through. Because they may look like the happiest person in the world. But then internally, and I'm an advocate for that in terms of those couple of years that I went through, things can be totally different. You know?
Steve Peters talks about that, and James Clear references Steve Peters in his book Atomic Habits.
I'm yet to get around to that. Fantastic book, I believe. Yeah,
savage. But that, you see them little small bits. It's never the big things. It's the small percent, 1% marginal gains.
Yeah,
that's what the whole Sky team was built on. And okay, we're not going to be professional cyclists, but we pull that back into our lives. The 1%, it's like, how are you, Shane? How are you today? Something so fucking small, and the person doing it doesn't even realise they're doing it.
Yeah.
But if we all just done that little small stuff, it doesn't have to be throwing €200 at someone. The small little stuff, you know what I mean? I'm down them shelters all the time, and I always say hello to everyone.
Yeah.
Because I remember me dad coming back to me and saying, like, somebody said something to him down at Super Value and being fucking over the moon by one comment. And it's like, that person that even said that to him was probably saying, oh, look at this fucking old mad cunt, how are you? You know what I mean? And didn't even give it a second thought. But that little comment made his fucking day. You know, so it's mad, that little small stuff, it is important.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is really important, you know.
And even in sporting context, I remember I only had a conversation with them there, I think it was a couple of years ago, and I actually mentioned it in a talk, and he came to me and he was like, I didn't know what that had done for you. It was actually Paul Flynn.
Right.
When I came out of St. Pat's and I was coming back into the team, and I think it was a gym session, as it were, out in Blanchardstown, and I arrived early just to, you know, settle myself and everything. I was obviously nervous, thinking, what lad's going to think of me? You know, are they going to see me different? Are they going to treat me differently? You know. So I was foam rolling out and different bits and pieces, the lads coming in, and Flinner come over to me and he patted me on the back and he said, good to see you back, mate, and he just went off. And for me, I was like, oh, that's me back, like, as in that means so much to me. And exactly like that, he probably didn't give it a second thought. He didn't. And only when I said to him years later, I was like, Flinner, that was the biggest thing. You literally pat me on the back. And that meant the world to me. And he was just like, and I think kind of for him as well, like, as I know he's had his kind of difficulties in his own kind of life in terms of, you know, his friends and family and all that kind of sort of stuff, and he's a lot more clued into it. A lot of kind of people are going through kind of difficult times themselves or have had adversity on their doorstep, you know, are tuned into these sort of things to us, and like, it's just making other people aware, those little gestures, like even like all this kind of social media pressure to look a certain way and all this sort of stuff, as in just be you, as in like. And that's the thing, as in like, I'm going into schools and talking to kids and all this, I'm like, don't change who you are, as in like, don't feel like you need to fit into a norm and the bigger kind of group and all that just to feel like you're wanted, because you're going to very, very quickly figure out that no one gives a shit about you. You know, no one gives a shit. So as in like, be you, be nice, be gentle, those little gestures, you know, just kind of ooze that and it will come back to you tenfold then.
And even like everyone feels anxiety. Everyone feels like, about 10 years ago, I always pushed myself towards adversity. About 10 years ago, I'd really struggle with any form of public speaking. Like, asked to be talk at a wedding or something like that. Absolutely fucking touching cloth, shit myself. You know, any type of that stuff. You have to say a prayer at your grandmother's funeral. Fuck's sake. I seen this. I do this mad shit every now and again. Just once a year, once every 6 months, I just do some course completely off the wall to test myself. So I seen this crash course in comedy. Right?
Okay, right.
So 4-day comedy crash course, and at the end of it, you had to go up on stage and do 5 to 8 minutes in front of 200 people. I know. I know. And I remember even paying the money to do it, and I was like, thinking about it. But anyway, I done it. But the confidence that has given me, like what the comedians, everyone's there. I was like, oh, they're gonna fucking slaughter me, and it's gonna be this. And you spoke about it in your book on the party situation, when you paused and looked. Everyone's talking and no one's listening. And with the comedy thing, people are there for a good time. They don't actually give a fuck about me. They're out for a few beers and they just want to laugh. And no matter what the fuck I say, if it's not completely terrible, they'll laugh. And you know what? they laughed.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So
yeah.
bringing it back to myself, I build myself up into this thing, and you spoke about it in your book. I am not that fucking important. You know, I'm not that important. I have to humble myself and go, John, you're not that fucking important.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of pressure off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you spoke about that at that party. It's like that, and you pause back and you were kind of, and everyone's fucking talking and no one's listening. Yeah. No one listens.
No.
Everyone wants to talk.
Yeah, and I love that kind of thing, because I've had that even in the last kind of number of years for different things of, like, say if I went on to a big time kind of TV or something like that, and I see like a little, you know, hair out of place, and I was like, oh jeez, people are gonna slag me for that, and people are coming back saying, oh, that was brilliant, fair play to you. And not a mention of something that I was really looking out for, because again, no one cares. It's just it's the grander scheme of what the actual context of the talk was. And then even on things like that, when you're going around with your mates and everything, you may have, like, you know, a certain anxiety about something, and then you take a back seat, a bit of reality, a bit of perspective, and you're looking around, it's like, no one's actually paying attention to this, so I wasn't like, why should I? Like, you're the only one that is making this situation into a worse one, as opposed to actually being there. That kind of thing of, like, I don't think people kind of realise when you're saying, like, be in the moment. As in, like, be in the moment, don't worry about the past, don't future project, because that's just not helpful. That's not helpful to you. As in, like, enjoy kind of that kind of aspect of being around your friends, being around your family, being in that kind of moment, and not worrying about other things that people just don't give a shit about. You know. And I love that kind of way of looking at life in a different way, where I never once would have. You know. And
it's like what you said there a minute ago is, like, be yourself. It's I think it was Oscar Wilde had a quote: "Be yourself. Everyone else is taken."
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And what does that mean? It's like I'd see, say, on social media sometimes, and I see a few young fellas out, and you're kind of looking at them or whatever. I'll be looking at them from afar. Say my young fella have all his mates over, and I'd be looking at them, and I'd see them on social media a bit, and you kind of go, oh jeez, they look like they're having a great time. Then you actually see them in person, you go, what the fuck is going on? The fucking phones, not one of them's fucking present. That's just what they do. You know, it's like, put down the fucking phone and talk to each other. It's they're what they're doing is what they've seen someone else doing, and as a teenager, I would have been the same as well. You look at other people and go, oh fuck, that's what you kind of have to do. You know what I mean? But nah, it doesn't have to be like that, man. You know. It doesn't have to be like that. I'm
learning that perspective as well, because the likes of that, as I'm like, although I'm saying, and I know it internally in terms of be yourself, because, you know, it's that kind of individuality of being yourself and being comfortable within yourself. And I'm learning that in different aspects of my life, where I can be myself in certain situations. Other situations I'm still trying to learn to be me. You know, some situations I fall back into that kind of teenage self of just wanting to fit in, because I don't want to do my thing here. You know, I just want to be quiet in the background, no one kind of looking at me. But then I kind of learn from that, because I kind of reflect. I'm a lot more reflective now in terms of different situations that I go into. How can I be better? How can I improve? What would I change? That sort of stuff, where I used to just be like happy that I was just going with the status quo, and everyone was happy and no one was bothering me and all this kind of stuff. And funny, we were saying about the lads, like, as in those little things about the phone, and I'd be slagging there with mates that we'd be driving down the road and it'd be like, oh, there's 10 lads in North Face and Icon hats and D squared and all this, the electric scooters and all this. As in, like, I'm just like, lads, like, when he was wearing like a pink jacket or something like that, or like, you know, something different, like, you know, just do something different. Stop trying to fit in and wear the same thing, and just kind of fit in with the grander kind of scheme. And of course they'll learn that, as in, you spoke about it, I spoke about it. We're all that kind of teenager, immature, not really known, but it's about the kind of that journey and kind of life, and learn that, and hopefully learn it quicker rather than later, you know. And
my older young fella wouldn't be kind of like that, you know, with regard to what he's wearing, like. But the younger fella is fucking, he's 12 and he comes in, want to get me tea whitened, and want to get a Canada Goose jacket. I'm like, what? He's 12. I'm like, what? Where is he getting this out of? And then all his mates calling to the door, and I'm like, what, they're out for a fucking smash through that Canada Goose shop in Graven Street or something. They're all decked out.
Yeah.
The whole lot of them.
The whole lot of them.
It's mad.
It's so fun, isn't it?
It's mad. Like, I do like me labels and stuff, but
of course,
I like them because I'm not getting them because you're a man. It's like, lads, there's 10 years there. You're all in Canada Goose jackets. What's the story?
Yeah.
One is not even getting our face or something else, you know.
I don't know how the women differentiate between them. It's like just a black kind of Canada Goose jacket going.
Yeah,
by 10.
It's funny. It is funny, but one that's bleeding teeth whitened. But I suppose that's the age they're growing up in. And I had another girl on the podcast. She's a psychotherapist with Oak Psychotherapy, Jenny Loftus, and what you spoke about is there is just like blending in, sitting in. That is a fear for teenagers. My fear of public speaking is they're heard out of place. Someone takes a photograph and they're a meme in the bleeding WhatsApp group.
Yes.
That's what really worries them. Like kind of being different than the rest of the lads, as is normal for a teenager. We all want to. We're so unsure of ourselves. We just want to blend in and be normal, whatever normal is. There's no such thing.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And I've learned and educated myself. Dysfunction is the norm. We're all dysfunctional.
Yeah.
Humans are dysfunctional.
Yeah.
You know, we're a tribe of people just trying to wing it. So we're all dysfunctional.
I love that thing as well that you've spoken about, the kind of adversity piece, as in like I'm the exact same, particularly in the sporting world, in terms of my career. Maybe it has not to the point now got to the heights that it once was projected to be. Do you know, that kind of way? And I found difficulty within that at the start, you know, going through a number of injuries, getting dropped, get brought back in, all this sort of stuff. And the way I'd seen it was, you know, adversity's hit me, how am I going to kind of react to it? As I can go one way or go the other way. And even the kind of thing of like, as in the irony in it is, like, I've been away from the Dublin setup, I've been in and out the last number of years, but I think I've become such a more rounded person and much more rounded player, because it's given me that kind of perspective piece. I take a step back, okay, let's assess the situation here, what do I need to do, instead of kind of just like, you know, going, you know, pissed off and just going off and like, no, it doesn't matter, you know. That adversity piece that a lot of people shy away from, as in like I dive head first. I'm kind of like, in a strange way, I spoke about that kind of buzz of like, I'm going to become such a better person after this. And I know it's so difficult to see at the time adversity hits you, but it's just that kind of buzz, because I've learned and have so much experience of adversity hit me right in the face, but I've come out the other side so much better, that without wanting to use a cliche, you know, it shaped me into the man I am today. And I truly believe that, you know. At 26 I've a lot to kind of do in a sporting context, life context, and a lot of different bits and pieces. I'm going to have a hell of a lot more adversity face me in some regard, but I'm going to come out the other side every single time, you know. And that's that kind of piece where I love to kind of know that I can. And
like, I have a lot more life experience than you, and come across athletes, high level athletes of all different sports and genres, and the thing about it is 99% of that high level athlete is failure. 99% of them. So like, everyone fucking, if the pub was open down the road here, you'll have the local scrouts pulling the balls off themselves, having a few points, going, oh, your man's bleeding shite, you know what I mean? Yeah, and you're winning, you know what I mean? But the 99% of failures, they apply that then to their business lives or their lives. Or, do you know what I mean? They drag that getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning, doing an extra session at 1 o'clock, doing another session at night at 7 o'clock. They drag that into their life, and it improves. Like the amount of Pat Gilroy. Pat Gilroy grew up on my estate.
Did he?
Yeah, he grew up in Betty Glen and Raheny. He grew up in. He played for Vincent's.
Brilliant.
You know, played for the Doves for a bit. Look what he's gone on to do. You know, other guys around the place, like, that I've come across, kind of okay athletes, and just fucking drag that into their business lives, and a different story altogether. So it's that self-improvement. It mightn't have worked out, but look at this. You know, that's that athlete mentality, you know. It is good, you know. And I like the other bit as well, what you spoke about there, the adversity. I've heard described, I think Carl Jung describes it as this Carl Jung. Have you read any stuff by him?
No.
Carl Jung, check him out. You'd be into his stuff.
Yeah.
Carl Jung, Carl Gustav Jung was his name, and he describes that pain is the touchstone to spiritual progression.
Mm-hmm.
No pain, you're not going to go. Well, if you weren't going through hell, there'd be no need to improve anything.
Yeah.
You stay where you are. So without the pain that you went through, it's kind of like, I can't do this. There's only what you were going through and what my dad was going through. Like, my dad was driving around, he had his tree picked out, he had a rope in the boot of his car for about 2 months. He'd had his, and then with the dark humour, this is what I liked in your book as well, the laces bit. I'd say to me, Alva, we're going to take a drive by our tree and say hello, you know, because you have to have that dark sense of humour.
Yeah.
Who wants to come across, and not to come across, to improve and lose your fucking sense of humour? You need to have a sense of humour about it as well. But my dad was driving around, you go and see your tree. Just a joke, you know what I mean?
It's mad, yeah. Like, I used to call, and I'd still call up to the point of when I was on medication and came off, I think it was 2018. I'd be staying over in the last house or something like that, or they'd be over in the morning or the evening time, and they'd see me kind of taking my medication. And I remember at the very start, they're kind of like, because I wasn't a Nurofen or a paracetamol or something like that, and I was like, oh, it's just my Smarties here, my crazy pills or something like that, and they're kind of like, are we... And I go, lads, I'm mental and all, like, as in, like, little things like that. And now, like, all the lads, even the Gaelic lads, one of the boys I was training with there this morning, like, he calls me the Mad King. It's like, his mum and dad were asking the other day, it's like, why'd you call him the Mad King? He's fucking mental. He's absolutely mental. And they're like, can you say that? I was like, it's grand, like, you know, making a bit of humour out of it. And of course there's a time and place to do it, but as in, I think for me, you know, slagging myself and, you know, making them a bit more comfortable in the situation. It's like, lads, if this was like a broken leg or like a scar or something like that, you'd be quick to kind of have a bit of banter. It was like, oh, peg leg or something like that, or like Harry Potter or something like that, like the scar. Like, because it's a mental health thing that's stigmatised, like that so many people still see it.
Yes.
You know, they're afraid to kind of like, oh, can I make a joke here? And again, as I say, there's time and place for it, but just to have a bit of humour with it as well, like, as in to make it a bit more approachable of a subject, as in, like, how's the Mad King today? How are you getting on? You know, making it easier kind of conversation. And I think the more we do that, the easier it will become to have that conversation. Just like, oh, what's the weather like today? You know, how's the head today? You know, just have it at that kind of even keel. Don't feel like it has to be, I need to sit them down and you need to have a quiet space and everything like that. Ask them, you know. No, it is good, you know, and one of my dad's mates in there, when my dad went in the very first day, my dad refers, I did a podcast with me out for a two-parter on this as well, because it needs to be spoken about. But when my dad arrived in, he goes, your man was there 2 weeks or whatever before him. My dad sits down kind of licking his wounds a bit, you know, here I fucking second time, and your man goes, welcome to the Failures Club. And he goes, what? He goes, welcome to the Failures Club. He says, what do you mean the Failures Club? You're here because you failed to kill yourself. You know, this is... And my dad says, if we're going to lighten things up a bit, you know what I mean? Lighten things up. But I like the way as well, when you were in there, my dad was getting released as well. So my dad would have been competing as a veteran. So he'd be competing in his 60s, in his 70s. He still competes a little. And... they used to they let him out one day, so like you used to go up to the Phoenix Park to do your run around, they let me dad out as well, and it was that he looked forward to that, getting out all week, like you know, to that and where you trained up there beside the polo grounds, you know, it's like that was me reading the book, that was the centre of your universe for that little bit. It's like the small little wins, what Steve Peters talks about on James Clear's book, them 1% wins. If you're looking at, oh, Jesus Christ, I'm in a mental asylum and I'm up here in the Phoenix Park, or that's a 1% win. I'm up here, I'm kicking a football, I'm training, I'm running around. And that 1%, and I remember the conversations that I had in the early days with the nurses and doctors when they asked me, you know, what do you need? And I said, an open field. And they were like, just need a bit of ice cream or food, or I was like, just give me an open field. As in, like, that's what got me through the 2 years. As in, like, that I knew that was the thing that I knew that I could solely rely upon. I go, of course, this is absolutely fantastic. I'm in this institution and getting group therapy, one-to-one talks and CBT and all this different sorts of things, but I need to have this in addition to absolutely every other crutch that I have, kind of keep me up. And they were like, okay, and it was just every day, as it were, up in Phoenix Park, like, as in, that was my turf, that was my go-to, that was my safe haven, hood up, headphones on, and it was just me for that hour, whatever I was doing. And it was just that kind of little win every single day, because there wasn't a day that I never, regretted going up there. Every single time I came out, my mum and dad always remarked upon it, about how you had to spring your step after. You had to spring your step, come back to the car, and we could see it visibly in your face, like, as in how much happy you were in yourself, even if it were just for a couple of hours. And then I'd need to rely upon different things, like if I go back in, group therapy, CBT, and then do that sort of stuff. But for that couple of hours that I was there, that was kind of my, as you spoke with, the little win of, like, this is what's keeping me afloat, this is what's keeping me going day after day, and what I can look forward to. Each and every time, like, going to bed in St. Pat's, I was like, I can't wait to get back out on that pitch, and pound every blade of grass and be absolutely tongue hanging out, knackered and everything like that, because I loved it. I loved it.
Now it's and two other guys that were in there, my dad came from a cycling background. Two other guys that were in there that would have come from similar backgrounds as me dad. One of them was a national champion, and one of them was very good as well. Was in America and everything. Both of them have committed suicide since. Like, so it's not all. We have to take the happiness out of the small successes we have. Because not everyone gets what you got, what me dad. And it's to herald the successes rather than talk about the failures. It's to be pleased. Not everyone gets it, but the ones that get it, we need to talk about and find out what they done. And find out the approach that they took.
And that's the thing. I'm always very careful in kind of saying to people, as in, like, I was so privileged the position that I was in, and the likes of your dad as well, to be in such an institution as St. Pat's. We wouldn't have been able to do that as a family if the GPA weren't there, Dublin GAA, in support. And I'm well aware of that. I'm well aware of the absolute privileged position that I was in, because unfortunately, as we kind of spoke about, the government and lip service and different bits and pieces, like, these services just aren't there. As in, like, I've been getting messages, like, with the book, and people are asking me and reaching out and saying, look, I've taken that step, but I've been told I need to wait 6 months. And people have been in the position that I was in. And unfortunately, they're adding to that statistical kind of thing that will come in a couple of years, of that suicide kind of rate of being the highest in Europe. And I'm kind of thinking, how is this not blindly obvious? That is, and, like, we need to get this as, you feel sick, you go to the doctor. You feel mentally ill, you go to the doctor on that day. To be told you need to wait 6 months in a life or death situation, as in, like, it just baffles me. We could go on about it for hours and days and whatever else, but from that kind of context, I'm very, very kind of privileged of the position that I found myself in. I'm very much aware of that, and I'm just trying to give my perspective, my experience, and say, if this was there for a lot of people, we can be all heralded and put up on this pedestal and saying, look, this is a path, this is how you go about it, and this is how you get over it. Because as you were saying there, just an example there of your dad's friends, unfortunately they didn't make it over the other end, like,
and like, when my dad at the worst time there, if they said 6 days, he wouldn't last 6 days. Never mind fucking 6 months.
6 months.
It's but I'm not going to fucking go down a rabbit hole on the HSE.
So probably start you off.
Draw a fucking line on my pocket and just.
I didn't want to go into that.
But for people, I've spoken to Philly McMahon about this as well, and Philly would talk about his own dad. He died of a different illness, but he said what killed him was not what he died of, is he had no health insurance, no policy, and my dad has a fucking great policy That's how he got in.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Via, he worked in the ESB for years, and he always paid into his health insurance policy. My wife's father has had a lot of heart troubles and stuff. He's no health insurance, and it's night and day between the two. So I suppose if anyone can afford health insurance or whatever, get all over it, because if you don't have it, nobody cares.
Yeah.
You're come back to me in 3 years, 4 years or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, poverty will kill you in this country, and it's not poverty of not having food or it's not having a decent health insurance plan. That's what will kill you, because you just get knocked down. No one's really interested. Whereas if you have a policy plan, it's like, come in.
Yeah.
You know, straight away. Me ma got her, before COVID really kicked off the last time, she got her hip replaced up in the Sanctuary Sports Surgery Clinic. They have a good policy, you know what I mean? They're in, once straight in, she's like, me hip is killing me. Your man took her in, he had her in the next week, hip out the next day, you know, so it's good to have a good policy, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
No, it is good. Shane, I'm trying to think, what am I going to finish off on this with? I just want to read a little section out of this. I highlighted loads. I don't really highlight lots in books. That's not done highlight. So I'll read this last bit and I'll ask you about it.
There's 2 books there, by the way.
2 of them. I've one of them is mine, and the other one isn't. But I highlighted. I want to fucking ask him about this.
Excuse me.
Oh yeah.
Cold, please.
And this is the main bit where I looked in it, and I'm like, this person is getting well. So, and as a teenager myself, I would have, how I viewed me dad. Me dad start talking about stuff, and I'd be like, shut the fuck up. I'm a teenager, shut the fuck up. Or even teens going fucking yawning with me eyes closed.
Yeah, yeah.
So I underlined this bit because this bit hit me, you know. My dad was mid-sentence talking about all things sport when I cut across him. Do you remember back in the secure unit when you were telling us about your life in Eastwall? Tell me more about it, I said. My dad looked at me surprised, pausing for a moment. He said, okay then. Over the next couple of hours, my dad hard to stop in his tracks when he gets talking. I heard stories that I never heard before, nothing to do with sport, purely about my dad and his life. It showed me how close-minded I had been before, how really little I knew about my dad outside the world of sport. You know?
Yeah.
For me, that bit, and even the presence, it's like, yeah, this bloke is he's after seeing this other way.
Yeah.
It's there's a lot of life out there, and it's just not all about me. And when you're suffering with depression or a teenager, all you can think about is yourself. And most real high level good athletes, it's selfish and self-centered to the core.
Yeah.
That's the way you have to be. It's all about your nutrition, it's all about your rest. But that bit, I was like reading that bit going it hit me in the heart, that, you know.
And I remember that. I specifically remember that because that was the thing where, as I spoke about that kind of piece where my mum and dad had said broaden your horizons, and I was thinking, if it's not about sport, I don't want to know. And I was so clouded in my thought going into St. Pat's with a lot of things, but I was so clouded in my thought that I still thought football was the only thing going on in my life. And I think I'm right. Remember that was a couple of weeks into my stay, or a bit into my stay, that I was beginning to get, you know, unclouded in my thought. I was beginning to get clarity, and I was beginning to get more perspective on life. And I remember when my dad had first spoken about, you know, his life in East Wall and just his life in general, and, you know, how he missed his brother's wedding for a football match and all this sort of stuff, and mad stories that he was going on about in East Wall, and like, cracking up, you know. And as I said, my dad is very hard to stop at the best of times when he goes off on one, but I was so engaged. I was so engaged, and I was so happy that I had that kind of perspective, that I could actually listen to my dad in a different way, as opposed to the old teenage way. It's like, Dad, shut the fuck up, like, stop talking. And I didn't even speak all that much. He just like and he could see that on the other side, that I was so invested in it, and it was so nice to see a part of my dad that I'm so glad that I'd seen at that point in time, because when I was thinking, I was like, geez, imagine I never you know, went into that kind of conversation, and God forbid, you know, my dad passed away, whenever that may be, and that regret of, did I actually know my dad? You know, because I know exactly where he was coming from in terms of, he loves me, he you know, he idolises the kind of sport and context that my life is in, and all he wants from me is to succeed in that, because he sees how much I put into it. But at the flip side of that, then I'm kind of like, there's a person on the other end of this conversation, and he's much more than my dad, as in I see him as a friend, I see him as my idol as well, the way he carries himself. And the stories were dark, they were grim, they were hilarious, they were light-hearted, the whole lot. And it's really, really nice, and I keep on having to check in with myself very often times when he's asking me how your training's going, all different bits and pieces, like, how's the taxi business going, as in like, what's the crack, you heading away on a holiday, or how's the kind of, I don't know, I would say just the social aspect of your life, as in like, how are you feeling, how are you getting on? And that was the first kind of tipping point that I had with my dad, and it was so nice to get to that realisation that exactly what you just said, it kind of just like, he's getting it here. He really is. He's turning the corner in the way that he's thinking, and so much different. As in 7 years on, conversations are centred around sport at certain terms. Other terms, though, you know, it's about life and just things in general, I'd say.
And it's like what you spoke about, the tables of the leg earlier on. It's like trying to keep them balanced. And I shared a post on this today. I was reading a quote by Nietzsche, and he was talking about ego. And a lot of people talk about ego, going, oh, you have to get rid of ego, you have to get rid of ego. I don't believe that. I believe you need an ego, and an ego will get you out of bed in the morning. Not feeling fit enough will get you out of bed in the morning. Not feeling good enough will get you out of bed in the morning. You need to be out of bed. But there's a couple of different egos, and it's getting rid of. He talks about casting out the devils. Sometimes you need to hang on to a few of them.
Yes, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You need to hang out. It's like, I come across Shane, and I use this with the MMA lads I speak to, and from an MMA context or a jiu-jitsu context, but you can use it for a Gaelic. It's like, when you become so placated and soft, you're not really gonna fucking give the extra 5% to try and win that ball, or to get stuck into them. So you have to kind of hang on to them little devils, but be aware of them. But they make you win. You know what I mean? They make you push through. They make you stay for the extra 15-20 minutes in the gym, rather than saying, I feel great and I'm amazing. And you need them devils as well. You know what I mean? Yeah,
and that's where I picked up a lot of, you know, that sort of stuff of like doing an extra bit, or that kind of quote that I always remember Dad saying, as in like, anything you do to your best of your ability. As in, whether that's sporting terms, or you know, career or college, whatever it may be, everything you do. And I could see that very early on from the upbringing that he had in East Wall, as in like, he didn't fall on kind of easy times. It was quite difficult. He left school at 13 and to fend for his mother, and you know, that's what he had to do. He had to find a way to fend for his family, and I could see that kind of hard working aspect. And my sisters even, you know, let me be aware of it, that he never got that luxury of going to all their matches because he was working so hard for the family to get us a house in Portmarnock, to be privileged, be in a privileged position to get there. And I was made aware of that from very early on. So I was, that kind of hard work, that kind of, you know, grit, determination that you need to get through life. You know, of course, be humble, be you know, good natured, I would say, but always have that kind of grit between your teeth to go and go that extra bit, no matter what it is, whether it's sport, career, or college, or whatever it may be.
Now, I'd have that similar philosophy that your dad had. I'm a hard worker, I'm a grafter, but when I talk to my son as well, what I say to him is, you know, carry yourself, bit of humility, but when you come off that mat, come out of that cage, come out of that ring, you make sure everybody that's watching you, or the fella you're scrapping, knows exactly who the fuck you are.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I always, because I'd read all these books, and I'm supporting him, but like whether he fails or wins, my life isn't going to change, and my love for him isn't going to change. But it's really important to have that kind of philosophy of make sure everybody knows your name. It's that put everything into it. What your dad was talking about.
Yeah.
It's like that. Do everything to the best of your ability. Don't half-arse it.
Yeah.
You know, there's enough half-arses out there. Don't fucking half-arse it. All in.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
No matter what you do, go all in. You know, enjoy it, but be all in.
Yeah.
You know, at high level. So I like that bit. You know, I did like that bit.
I love that, and that's the beauty of it is in terms of like the book, and without a corny sales pitch or anything like that. As in, like I found each and every person that I've spoken to have taken different nuggets of bits, because you know, whether it be a young person, an old person, a mum, a dad, a coach, a brother or sister, there's a story in there for everyone that will resonate and relate to you in some shape or form. And I'm not trying to push the book in terms of sales or anything like that.
Buy the fucking book.
I'm just saying it in general, and I think a lot of people have come to that. You see a dumb jersey at the front of the book and think it's just a sporting book. It's so much more than that, and that's what I want kind of people to kind of realise. It's a book, of course, about sport, but about life, about adversity, about overcoming things, and a lot of relatable things for a lot of people, because there's different characters, there's different stories that you can relate to, and you've taken a piece out of there that I never heard from anyone else before. You know, in the same context, I'm sure I'll speak to someone else and they'll take a little bit of information about it as well. So if it's one thing, and I always say that even from my public speaking events, if there's one thing that you take from my talk today, take that and spread it far and wide. You know?
And like coming out the other side of it, like religion is for people that don't want to go to hell. Did you ever hear this? Spirituality is for people that have been there. and like there's a lot to be said in that. There's a lot to be said in educating yourself on this stuff, and unfortunately there's probably people listening going, you know, what are they talking about, and that's great, but for the people that are listening to this going, I'm really fucking struggling, I'm really worried about my son, I'm really, it's better to be arming yourself and educating yourself with this stuff and be open and be talking about it, because like with you going up to your room that time, and I understand completely, teenager, you know, like my uncle's world at the moment is MMA, PlayStation, on his phone. That's it. You know, his mates as well are integral part, and I'm a bit player in it, which is completely normal. But it's like that, you bring me to training, you bring me to this, and then bring me to that, and I'm in the background. Yeah, son, did you bring your drink? No, I forgot it. I packed it. You know, that's a dad's job, to be there in the background, supporting, shut your fucking mouth and just help them. And our conversations, my favourite conversations are if he's after getting smashed up on the way home in the car. You know, there doesn't mean much talk for a while, and then you get a few. Well, they're important as well. But it's to be there, that support. Like your family were there, your mom was there, your dad were there, and your sisters were there. You were really lucky, I thought, because with me dad, I hadn't got the rewards for it. My brother hadn't got the words for it. Whereas girls have the words for it. They're emotional beings anyway. Like we're just like one-dimensional. You know what I mean? What? Do you leave that plate there? What plate? I didn't see a plate. Whereas like girls see everything. You know what I mean? So you were a lot luckier than most being with them in your life. And they're integral in the book as well. I like them stories where your sisters, the sister in Stockholm or the sister you went to the walk with, you know, they're integral in it, you know. It's I really enjoyed it. Enjoyed the book, you know. Really enjoyed that book. So we're gonna wrap it up at that. So Shane, thanks a million for the swim this morning. Thanks a million for the chatting. The Slubrious man. Fuck Joe Rogan. Check out this the man. So really, and again, get his book. There you go. There's his book. Buy his book. It's in Eason's, €14.95 online as well. You can buy it. Buy his book, and if you're not into sport, it's not really a sports book. Sports is mentioned in it a bit, but it's not. It's kind of, I'd equate it to Lance Armstrong's book a bit. It's not about the bike, because it's not about sport. This is all about whether you've suffered with depression or whether you haven't suffered with depression. It's about life, this book.
Yeah.
You know, about coping with what comes at us and stuff. That's what I got out of it anyway. So, nice one.
Appreciate it.
Right, I'm going to fucking wrap this up. I've never done this before. It is gift. Yeah.
You just throw it on live?
Throw it on live, yeah. Here we go. Do you know how to use Instagram? How do I share that? I think it's... Don't want to press X. No. It turns around.
Press the stop button there.
Is that the stop?
Yeah, then stop there for stop recording.
Then I might lose that, will I?
If we went out live, it should be us instead of...
Good man, Connor. What do I do here, bud?
So end video.
Whereabouts is that?
Just the X. Should be an X
The
there.
X up top right, yeah.
Yeah, press the X.
Yeah, did.
End video.
End video.